I've been preaching for the last 12 years. Yes, this was 12 years ago. Aww. And I'm constantly trying to get better, constantly trying to learn from different types of pastors, trying new things myself. There was a man named Jesus who was both responsible. I promise you that's a little bit of a joke video here. There's context to it, which reminds me, preaching needs context. Anyways, I'm a classic sellout and I am a partner with Logos Bible Software. It's not a sellout. In fact, they don't pay me, but if you do get this resource, no extra cost to you, but there's a throwback to this preacher over here. I have tried a lot of different resources, and by far, my favorite resource I keep going back to is the Timothy Keller Sermon Library resource offered only through the Logos Bible Software. I think it's so valuable. First of all, I love it because it's actually not listening. It's not a podcast format. It's written, and it's written so well. And it's like every sermon he's ever preached. Like if you try to go to any passage, it's likely he's preached on it, which has been super helpful for me. I don't know if this lighting's cool, so I'm gonna change the scenario. Also, I know there's gonna be preachers watching this. I'm trying to show off this old vintage Sunday school thing. Here's a few reasons why I think today you should get the Timothy Keller Sermon Library resource on Logos. Number one, he always brings you back to the gospel. He does a great job of always juxtaposing what it looks like to pursue a life of self-righteousness and to pursue a life of self-rejection. And obviously there's always a third way with the gospel. Timothy Keller, almost every passage is able to do that, and it's a great reminder for me as a young preacher to bring everything back to the gospel. Another thing I really love about Tim Keller is he truly is a student, both of the culture and of church history. For the culture, I've been able, obviously a lot of his sermons, it was some of them go back 30, 40 years ago, and so some of the culture he was dealing with then is not the culture we're dealing with now, but he does show a great job of how to connect a passage in its proper context and then reach into resources in the culture. He often quotes plays, and he talks a lot about politics, but in a really healthy, balanced way. But he's also a student of pastors throughout history. And so actually my library has increased because he does the actual job of giving credit to the pastor he's quoting. It's fantastic. So I'm able to learn by him showing me what he's been learning from, and that's actually taught me a lot in pastoral ministry to actually give credit where credit's due. That actually leads me to a little side caveat. A lot of people talk about how I don't listen to any pastor, I don't read any sermons, it's just me and the Lord. Well, I think that's ignorant. There was a man, a preacher, who claimed to say that he was gonna be original or nothing, and he was both. So my opinion, what we have to do is we have to milk a lot of cows but churn our own butter. And I think reading from pastors like Tim Keller, also reading a bunch of other books, is one super helpful way to make sure you are continuing to hone your sermon craft. Honestly, Tim Keller is like the best cow to milk. That, and it's outside of its context. That's a terrible thing. I don't know if I'll include that part. What was I gonna say? Yeah, I think it's really great that a lot of pastors have their media content online, videos, podcasts out there, but the reason I like to listen to those is actually to really focus on communication, voice influx, all those things are really important, but I think Keller is really helpful and I think better and healthier for us long term because it's more about the content. I like reading it so I'm able to kind of impose my own communication style, but the way he communicates this message is so timeless because he's communicating a timeless message and he doesn't really care about really being a prisoner of the moment, and so it's always good. It's so good, and Logos really makes it easy. It organizes it by date or by reference or by sermon series. In fact, I'm not gonna lie, I have walked through all of his sermon series based off that resource and got ideas of what my next sermon series will be called, different ideas of how to walk through the Proverbs. It's an incredible resource. The link is down below if you want to check out this resource. Again, I get a little bit of a kickback, no extra cost to you. I hope that you would consider purchasing this resource. Now, I understand it's kind of a lot of money. I actually did the monthly payment, but here, I'm not here to twist your arm, honestly. If you're gonna pay for anything that big, just go to vloggerministry.com. I sound like one of those guys. But if you can't afford it, and I totally get it, we are pastors after all, I encourage you to get this book called Preaching by Tim Keller. It's a whole Tim Keller theme today. This book's fantastic. In fact, I read it like 3 years ago, right when it first came out. And so I think I'm gonna go back through that this year. He does such a great job of keeping Christ at the center, but also healthily, in a great, smart way, is healthily a word, bringing in culture. I really think it's valuable. So if you can't afford upwards of $300, even though I think it's worth it, it's like $27 a month for this Bible software, Tim Keller library, all the transcripts of his sermons, at least get this book. I'd love for you to comment below. I want to hear what you're doing in ministry. What is your favorite preaching resource?